here. Some new faces I haven't seen before, so that's really nice. Welcome, welcome. I'm going to introduce you to Kieran. If Kieran, you could give us a little wave. There he
Hello.
is. And he's going to do the talk on the accessible driving. He is an accessible driving instructor, so he knows the practicalities of it as well as all the nitty-gritty legal stuff that you need to know as well. Okay, so I'll hand over to Kieran.
So thank you very much for Steelbones for inviting me to do this. So just a little bit of background. I've been a driving instructor for 8 years. Previous to that, I worked in sports and fitness with a focus of working with people with disabilities, bringing them into the buildings that I worked in. Been specialising in people with disabilities for about 5 years, and now all I work with is those who need extra support, be that for physical need or for educational or mental health needs. Essentially, there's sort of two parts we're going to look at today. We're going to look at the learner driver process, and we're going to look at the return to driving process. A lot of the steps are very, very similar, and what is required for you to do legally is quite similar. And then there's some best practice things to make your lives a lot easier, especially for the return to driving side. So for what I'd start with first is a bit of a PowerPoint presentation on just what adaptions are there, what's available, your contacts, then we can go through sort of the legal side a little bit and go from there. So I'm going to try and share my screen, which Vicky will tell me whether this is working or not. Is that not working? Is this working, everyone?
Danny's disappeared.
Yeah. So, can you see that?
No, nothing's come up here yet.
Okay, that's. Yeah, good dog. Why is that? Okay, let's go back to try that. That should be. Is that working? Has that worked? Or not?
Yes, it has now.
Yeah,
Perfect.
we can see that now, yeah.
Okay, brilliant. So on screen now is your basic adaptions. So on the right-hand side at the top, you've got a steering ball. On the left-hand side at the top, you've got a secondary steering control. On the right-hand side of the steering wheel, there is a push-pull hand control, and in the floor, there is a left foot accelerator. Now, you would never see that number of adaptions all in one go. You would get one or two of the adaptions linked together. And we're going to go through those today, but these are your very, very common adaptions that you may need if you've got an amputation. If you've got multiple amputations, you may need more adaptions, and the adaptions may become more high tech. This is the very basic sort of starting point. So, left foot accelerator. Your standard accelerator on an automatic car is your brake on your left, your accelerator on your right. If you don't have use of your right leg, a left foot accelerator is one of the options. So a special system is put into the car, which keeps the brake pedal in exactly the same place, but the left foot accelerator then allows you to control the accelerator with your left foot and brake with your left foot instead of your right foot. Really, really good adaptation, especially for learner drivers. It can be a really good adaptation for those returning to driving. It can take some mastering, but it's a really, really good adaptation that is available to people. Then we've got your steering controls. So if you had an arm amputation, or if you're using a hand control, you might well end up needing a steering control. There's lots and lots of different types. They'll be fitted onto your steering wheel using a base, and then the adaptation type that you need would then be used. The standard two would be the ball or the mushroom. If you had other injuries to your hands, the other pegs and sort of tripods may then be appropriate, but the standard would be the mushroom or the ball, and they can be used on either side depending on what the amputation is or what the need is. Steering spinners are great. They allow you to move your hand between the wheel and the ball, giving you plenty of movement. They allow for very quick steering, which is a real strength, but also something you need to be aware of. And there are a few little areas that you need to be considering when using a steering ball, where having a little bit of tuition just to make sure you're aware of the strengths and weaknesses of them are quite important. So high speed control, they can be a little bit twitchy, which is where dropping your hand onto the side of the wheel is really helpful, especially when you're getting used to them. Driving on a long corner can start to build up a little bit of discomfort in your shoulder if you're not used to it. And because of the speed of steering, it takes a little bit of getting used to or moving away and things. So there's a few things that would be worth, knowing before starting to use a steering ball. Your secondary control works in exactly the same as a steering ball in terms of the way it fits and in terms of the way you hold it. But if for whatever reason you can't then use your indicators, your headlights, that sort of thing, this is where a secondary control is really good. For someone with a left arm amputation, using a secondary steering control would be a very, very common adaptation to then use. Now the push-pull hand control. This is your standard hand control. So if you've got no use of either legs, or the left foot accelerator is deemed not appropriate for whatever reason, this would be the standard hand control that you're suggested. It fits below the steering wheel, and it attaches directly to the pedals. It's a push away to brake, pull towards to accelerate. The push away from the brake, you push away because that's the way your body moves. So under braking, your body moves forward and that allows you to brake. You wouldn't want to be, under braking, pushing away and that then causing acceleration, hence why it's designed in that way. Takes a little bit of getting used to. This is an adaptation that I would absolutely recommend you have a couple of lessons on. Brilliant adaptation once you've got used to it. There are a few safety things that you need to be aware of, but they're an absolutely brilliant adaptation. Usually they're fitted with an integrated indicator, which is that little white stick, which allows you to indicate left and right without having to try and get your hand onto the normal indicator. Would almost certainly be used with a steering ball as well, because you've got one hand on the steering while you've got one hand on your accelerator and brake. There are then lots of other different types of accelerators that are available on the market. Now, these are non-standard, and you would need a clinical reason to have them fitted under Motability. If you are funding it privately, you can have any accelerator you want, but under Motability, it would be the standard push-pull unless there's a clinical reason why you need something different. All of these adaptations are electronic adaptations, and a lot of them would then require you to also have a push brake fitted. They're all really good adaptions. They all have their things that you need to know about. And again, I would always recommend having some lessons if using these electronic style accelerators. But understanding what you need is one of the things that we'll come on to later on. If you've got multiple amputations, you may require higher tech adaptions, and there is a huge range of higher tech adaptions out there available where you can drive with one hand, two hands, just your feet. There's all sorts of things available out there, but this is where you'd need a much higher level assessment, and you will need a lot of tuition on these types of adaptions. They are quite complicated to use, but once you got your head around them, they work really, really, really well. But you do need to understand what you're doing with these. Generally, these are only really available on Motability due to the large cost involved with having them fitted. Now, license coding. If you've had an amputation, you must inform the DVLA about the amputation, whatever the amputation is of a major limb. Within that will then be coded if you need different controls. If you're driving on standard controls, it wouldn't need to be coded, but the DVLA must be informed about the amputation. We're going to talk about driving assessments later on, but have a driving mobility assessment. Go to one of their assessment centres, which I said we'll talk about later on. That will make sure you're using the right stuff and that you're coded correctly. But if the DVLA do not know, your licence will not be coded correctly and you will not be legal to drive. That's a minimum £1,000 fine and your insurance may not be valid. So make sure you've informed the DVLA. There's a number of useful contacts here. So driving mobility, I'll talk to you about who they are later on. Disability driving instructors, which is a group of driving instructors that provide disability tuition, and Motability. I'm going to share this presentation with Steelbones so they can share this out to you with all of these contacts. But these are your three key contacts other than DVLA. So we'll unshare this screen now and we'll go back and we'll start talking to you, and hopefully I'll be able to answer some of your questions. Stop sharing. So I should be back. Can everyone see me again now?
Yeah.
Perfect. So let's look at some of the pathways. So for a learner driver, so firstly, learner drivers who are on higher rate PIP can start learning to drive from the age of 16 if they have a license. So learner drivers 16 or 17, depending on their level of PIP. My suggestion, if you're looking to learn to drive at 16, at about 15 and a half, go and have an assessment at your local Drive Mobility Assessment Centre. So, what is a Drive Mobility Assessment Centre? There are 14 organisations spread across the entire country that have multiple sites across the country that deliver driving assessments. The assessment looks at the disability and the ability that that individual has, and then works out what the best adaptation for that individual is. They will then identify that adaptation, and then they'll provide you with a report which details what they've done, what your level of ability or disability is, and then we'll provide you with their recommendations of the adaptation and what's needed. For a lot of people with disability applying to DVLA and applying to DVLA Medical for their licenses, if you don't go through the assessment process first, you'll apply for your license or apply to have your license changed, and DVLA will send you to a drive mobility assessment anyway. So you might as well go and have the assessment, get it all sorted, know what you need, and then send that report off to DVLA Medical when you're applying for the license or when you're applying for your license change. So yeah, you're already doing that bit, and it just speeds up the process. So for a learner driver, my suggestion would be have the assessment at about 15.5 or 16.5, depending on your level of PIP. Then apply for your license in paper form, send that off to DVLA with a copy of that assessment, and then find your instructor. Find your instructor well before you've got your license. There are not a huge amount of instructors with adapted vehicles out there. We do not know you exist. It's going to take 6 to 12 months to learn to drive as a learner driver. If we know you exist, we can get you in for your birthday or soon after your birthday, and we can work it out. If we don't know you exist, we've got big waiting lists, most of us at the moment, and you'll just end up waiting, unfortunately. So the sooner we know you exist, the easier we can organise that. And then once you've got your license and you're at the right age, we can then start teaching you. For a learner driver, on adaptions, mostly it doesn't take a huge amount longer to learn to drive than it would without a disability, without adaptions. In some cases, it can be a bit quicker because you're most likely to be learning in an automatic. So there's no need for clutch control and all that to come in. So that can actually speed things up. In terms of testing, the test is essentially the same, but because of the disability and the amount of paperwork that the examiner needs to do, the test would need to be booked as a disability test. Your instructor should know how to do that. There's no reason that the driving test should be any more difficult because of the physical disability over a standard test. Any questions about learner drivers before we move on and go to returning drivers? Yep. Go on, Wendy.
Does Motability still pay for lessons for a learner if they order a car?
Yes, no, maybe. So, if you're under 25, it is means tested. So if a parent, so your parent's income is taken into account. So higher rate PIP, cars ordered, yes, Motability can pay for 40 hours worth of tuition if you fit within their criteria. Their criteria changes every so often, so check Motability's website, check their criteria. My suggestion is still identify who you want to be your instructor. and get Motability to work with you. British School of Motoring and AA hold the contract for Motability lessons. They will just put that out to tender, and you may not get the instructor you want. You may not get the instructor with lots of experience with disability. If you're a learner driver and you've got a more complicated set of controls, Motability will pay for a instructor pedal to be fitted in that Motability vehicle, and the instructor can teach in your vehicle, which is a brilliant way to do it. It's your car, everything you're learning is for you and for your car, but most instructors won't want to teach a learner without a dual control fitted, and I think Motability have now brought in a rule that actually they won't allow learners to be taught without that instructor pedal fitted. So yes, Motability do provide funded lessons. It's 40 hours, which probably doesn't take you up to test quite. It might do, but make sure there's some money set aside for another lot of lessons. They often also only fund up to the first test. So if you fail a test, they're not guaranteed to fund post the test. So just be aware of that. It's a lot of red tape, a lot of rules, but there is funding available. If you're on higher rate PIP, you've ordered a Motability vehicle, and you meet the other funding criteria.
Does that also apply for familiarisation lessons if you have like a left foot pedal?
Yes and no again. You would need to speak to Motability. There are, again, the means testing bits on it, and it depends. Yeah, it's not a black and white process. So always ask, and then they can make a decision one way or another. They're generally happier to fund familiarization lessons on more complicated setups. So again, ask the question. They can only say no.
Thank you.
Any other questions on learners before we go to return to driving? Okay, brilliant. So returning to driving's in some ways a little bit more complicated. So whatever's happened, you've had your amputation. You want to get back to driving. At this point, someone at some point should have said to you, whether your doctors, your nurses, someone should have said to you, you must inform the DVLA about your amputation.
Never happens.
And if it does happen, you've probably got a million other things that you're thinking about, and you don't do it. So, you know, just for context here, I was at the Steel Bone Celebration Day, 2 months ago. 3 people came to us and spoke to myself and a colleague, and we found 3 people that were driving illegally. They hadn't informed the DVLA. We've given them the advice that they needed to sort out, but it's going to be more complicated for them. You know, if they had an accident, they are not covered, you know, on insurance, and they didn't know about it. They did not know about it. So, easiest way to do it: go and have a drive mobility assessment before you do anything else. If you get your doctor, GP, specialist, whatever medical support you've got, to refer you to the centre you want to use, it will be cheaper. So as I said, there's 14 centres across the country, and those 14 centres have got lots and lots and lots of satellite centres within that. In East Anglia, it's East Anglia Drivability, and that basically covers the whole of East Anglia. They have 2 main centres in Thetford and Colchester, and then they have a number of satellite centres in Peterborough, Norwich, Lowestoft. I know they've got some places further south. These centres are all over the country. So if you go on the Driving Mobility website, so just Google Driving Mobility Assessment Centre, or follow the link that was in my presentation, which I will share with Vicky so she can share with you, you can find your local centre. As I say, get yourself referred by your medical, your doctors or something. Give them the paperwork. Your doctor probably won't know about them, might not know about them. Your hospital should know about them, but they might not know about them. So if you provide the paperwork, get the referral done, it will be cheaper. Go and get your assessment done. Your assessment will be a physical assessment of the movements you've got. That's the cause of your amputation. Will take into consideration the likelihood of further issues of your amputation, how stable things like your stumps are and all of that stuff, and then we'll give you an idea of what the best adaptation is going to be for your particular situation. Where possible, they'll then have a vehicle that has those adaptations for you then to have a play with. So you can go, oh, look, I'm going to be able to do this. And they're going to look at your ability to use it. From there, they will then write a report which will, detail your physical condition, detail what they've done, detail the type of adaptations that they think are best for you, and the next steps you need to do, including how to inform DVLA. They'll provide you with the paperwork. They'll advise you on what lessons to get. They should be able to advise you on a local trusted driving instructor who will be able to help you. The next thing to do is let the driving instructor know you exist. Don't go doing the next bits unless you've let us know you exist. Don't go ordering cars, because those cars could arrive quite quickly, and then suddenly you've got adaptations that you're not confident on. The adaptations available are brilliant. There are lots and lots of different adaptations out there, but they take time to get used to. If you suddenly go on from using your legs to drive to using your hands to control the accelerator and brake, it's a lot more processing. If you've always been driving on your right leg and now you're using your accelerator on your left leg, learning how to use the brake takes time. If you just go straight into your vehicle, you're unprotected. An instructor, 1, will know what to warn you about, and 2, has got a dual control and will be able to look after you. Where if you're just in an undual controlled vehicle or without that instructor, you're on your own. And, there are horror stories out there where things go wrong. We're there to look after you. But 1, we don't know that you exist, so let us know early. And 2, we'd like to give you a few lessons, build your confidence up. You go and order your vehicle, we'll then do a couple more lessons, and then you're ready to go. Off you go. You're safe on the road. And if you, then want some more, you've not driven on dual carriageways for ages, get you on the dual carriageways. Most of us will also then provide you with a letter to say, we've done these lessons with you. We've taken you on all sorts of roads. We're confident you're safe. You can then send that off to DVLA Medical as part of your information that you're sending them to say that the instructor we've had says we're safe. So, assessment. Find your instructor, send the paperwork off to DVLA Medical telling them about the disability. They will then code your license to say what adaptions you're using. So your license isn't coded for the disability. So there's no codes to say that you're an amputee or that you've got other particular disabilities. It's just coded against the license and against the adaptions you're using. So if you're using a push-pull hand control, it'll be 2025 for adapted braking and adapted accelerator. You don't really need to worry about the coding, what it means in terms of what the numbers all are. It just has to be right. And again, your instructor or the assessment centre would be able to check that for you. So if you just send them a photo of the back of the card and say, this is what I'm using, they'd be able to check that's correct, because DVLA Medical don't always get it correct, unfortunately. So you're having your lessons, you now want to go and get your car. This is where further fun and games can come in. Now, if you go to a dealership and go and try and get a Motability vehicle, you can get a Motability vehicle if you've got higher rate PIP. So you can only get a Motability vehicle with higher rate PIP. If you don't have higher rate PIP, you can't get a Motability vehicle. If you're retired, you can't get a Motability vehicle. So once you've retired, you go into a different form of benefit, which doesn't cover Motability. So you do need to be aware of that. So your Motability vehicle, you go to your dealership, and again, take your assessment. That then says what adaptions you need. They'll go and sort out the adaptions. As I say, you don't need to have an assessment to get a Motability vehicle, but it's very, very, very highly advisable to have that assessment, because the people at the dealership do not understand about adaptions. Wendy will now tell you a story.
I'm on my 4th Motability car. My first car, I didn't do anything with the DVLA. I had got my license changed, but I hadn't had an assessment or anything like that. Went along to the garage, chose my car, thought, yeah, great, love this. The sales rep had no idea what adaptions I'd need, and he said I'd need hand controls. So fine, I'll have hand controls. Went to pick the car up. I had less than 10 minutes going round the block with the sales rep, and then I was on my own with a brand new car, a lethal weapon, on the road, and driving up the A47. I'm panicking, going, do I push or pull? Because I didn't have a clue. And that stopped me enjoying my car for weeks, because I was too scared to go out, because I couldn't remember in that panic, do I push or pull to brake or go fast? And I was terrified I was going to hit something. My second car had hand controls. My third car, since joining Steel Bones, I heard about left foot pedals. And I had 6 hours familiarisation lessons. The last 2 hours were in my new car. Love it, because I used to smoke and I drink ridiculous amounts of coffee. You can do neither with hand controls. But I can now drive and have a cup of coffee using my left foot pedal. The sales reps don't care. They just want to sell the car.
And it's
So
not that
please
it's
get
not
that
necessarily that they don't care. They don't know. They have got, if they've had training on how Motability works, they've had training in how to fill the paperwork out. Now, the other downside about it is often you're getting not the most experienced salesperson. You might well be getting the least experienced salesperson, because the salespeople are, they earn their commission on selling cars. They often don't earn commission, or they earn a very, very small amount of commission on a Motability car. So they'd much prefer to sell, that exactly same car to someone without a disability off Motability than the person on Motability. So you're getting someone who maybe doesn't know, doesn't understand, has limited experience. You might have a fantastic experience, but you might not. And then, as Wendy said, you then get in a car that you've got no idea about. They don't know what to look for in your license. So, there's another point where you could be picked up on the legality of, have you told them? But they won't necessarily check that. So you're now driving a car that you've got no experience on, and you're driving it illegally, potentially. So again, make sure DVLA know, have your assessment, then go and start looking at vehicles. My next bit of advice when it comes to Motability: find out who's going to be fitting the adaptions before you go and pick the vehicle. So go and go, oh, I like that car. Speak to the salespeople. Who fits your adaptions? They'll go and say, this company. Go and speak to that company. Go, this is the car I'm looking at. These are the adaptions I need. I want a hoist fitted in this vehicle. Oh, you can't have a hoist fitted in this vehicle because the boot's too small. There's not one that fits. Oh, well, that car's not going to be suitable. The dealership does not know that information. They'll just go, tick, needs a hoist fitted. Tick, needs a hand control. Tick, needs a steering ball. Or whatever they decide. They don't necessarily know that, okay, there's not hand control available for this vehicle because it's a brand new car, and that's not yet been, they're all bespoke. That's not been made for that car yet. So, make sure you're going through the steps. So, again, inform the DVLA. So have your assessment. Inform the DVLA. Find your instructor. Pick your car. Check that the adaptions and the hoists and anything you need in your car works. Then put the order in. Have your lessons before you get the car. Make sure your instructor knows that that you exist. I had a phone call yesterday from a guy. He is getting his car at the end of the month. He phoned me yesterday going, I've got my car coming. I live in Peterborough. I need lessons. Help. And I've got, a week to try and get him some lessons before his car comes. It's not going to happen. I cannot help him that quickly. Now, if he's put his order in, he must have known that this car is coming. And I want to help this guy. I really, really want to help this guy. But I'm not going to help him for probably a month, maybe. And especially as he's out of my area. So I've got to work my diary, or he's got to get to me to be able to make this work. And realistically, what Wendy said, she had 6 hours worth of lessons. So three 2-hour lessons, 2 of them in the instructor's car, 1 of them in her car, and she was off. Hand controls, yep. 6 to 10 hours worth of lessons. Most people will be absolutely fine. Left foot accelerator, again, 6 to 10 hours lessons. You'll be absolutely fine. Steering spinners and steering controls, maybe even less. they don't necessarily take a huge amount of time to get to master at all. But again, it's worth having a lesson on it if you're not used to them. Any questions at this point?
Is there much difference between the cost of the consultant doing a referral and doing it yourself?
So yes, it's so for East Anglia Drivability, I believe the cost of an assessment, if you self-refer, is about £160. If you are referred by a medical professional, I believe it's 100 or 110. So it's a decent saving. It's certainly worth having.
I've done it beginning of last year with East Anglia Drivability, and it was £100 plus VAT for self-referral. But I got a letter from my consultant, and it was £60.
Yeah, but it's gone up. It's gone up since then. My understanding is the grant that they're getting is reduced slightly from the government, and they've sadly had to put the prices up. But yeah, it's even that's at that point it's worth having that saving, isn't it? So yeah.
Is that
Sorry.
Is that saving there if you're a learner driver as well?
Yep, absolutely. That savings. Yep, absolutely. If your doctor refers you, yep, that saving is there for the learner as well.
Okay.
But you do have to book well in advance with them, don't you, as well? Yeah,
so at the moment, it's probably around a 3-month waiting list. Yes, Chris.
I did all this, and I've changed and done all my license, and I got it all organised, and I went for the assessment, and I went out. But that was in I think it was my first year, where I was very unstable on my leg. So therefore, I tried a couple of times. I have a wave vehicle with a left foot adaptation, but I'm not confident enough because I nearly stood it on end, etc. All the mistakes that you can make. So therefore, I haven't done it. I lost confidence. Although my mobility is much better, I feel I need lessons. So is that assessment? It was fine. They told me I was fine, but I needed to practice, obviously.
Yep.
So is that still okay? Because that's like 2 years ago.
Absolutely.
And I just left it.
So first thing, Chris, where do you live?
I'm in Needham Market.
So Needham Market, so Norfolk
area.
Yeah. This is where our next fun and games is. You're in a bit of a black hole of there are not a huge amount of instructors.
No. Oh.
Local instructor. You may well need to travel. You may find it's me. And I would quite happily come across. So I'm based in Soham, Cambridgeshire. So Stowmarket's a bit of a trek for me, but I quite regularly meet people in Bury St Edmunds.
Yeah, which is not too far.
Exactly. So if you could get to me, or you can find someone else, we could get you into my vehicle, and you could have a play on my controls. And with the safety of the dual brake there, and you can make the mistakes.
Control that left foot, and I tried the hand controls. Actually going out with the mobility people. I can't remember where it was. And I got in a real muddle. Ooh, I was like, my brain didn't compute the push.
The hand controls don't work for everyone at all.
Oh, and I said no, go back to the left. And I was better, but very cautious. Because I couldn't quite control that foot. So I feel I need.
And you probably do. The thing is now, and this is one of the things that the special left foot accelerator, and you've not now driven for 2-3 years with your feet, but that's actually a good thing for the control of the pedal, because you now need to just relearn the control because the muscle memory's gone. So you may actually find the left foot accelerator easier to come back to now, but you do need those lessons. It's one of the things.
I feel that I do. So I daren't go out and try it anymore. Also an automatic. I've never driven automatic, so I feel that has put me off as well. You know.
Yeah, because you're used to having.
Yeah.
You're used to having a manual vehicle where when you come off the accelerator pedal, the car starts to slow down.
Yes.
Well, in an automatic, it doesn't slow down.
No.
And if you're going downhill and you come off the accelerator, it still accelerates.
Yes.
And again, these are things that you're not told. And the assessment centre isn't there to tell you that stuff. The assessment centre is there to kind of go, this is what you can do. And then it goes, but you're going to need some lessons.
Yes.
And the very, very first thing that I do with any new client is go, have you driven an automatic before? Yes or no? No. Okay, these are the 2 or 3 things you need to be aware of.
Yeah.
You know, you're driving hand controls, you're driving a left foot accelerator, you're driving on a secondary control. These are the downsides of that, which again, the assessment centre's not going to tell you because they don't have time to do it.
Actually, he was quite good.
Oh, brilliant.
He did do some basics on automatics because he did ask me. So I thought that was really quite good.
Oh, that's good.
You know,
they don't always have the time to do that.
No, they were very good. I have got
fantastic. It's really, really good to hear. You know, I'm really, really impressed with them at East Anglia Drivability.
Yeah, he did.
So can we just go to Devine first, and then we'll come to you, Linda.
Hi, Divine here. So talking about the getting a consultant referral for the assessment, is there a form you can take? Because
so if go onto the Drive Mobility website, find your local assessment organisation. So where are you living, Divine?
Stevenage.
So you're going to be Hearts Ability.
Okay.
So go onto the Hearts Ability website. They will have a how to refer information. Print off their referral form, and then you'll go and get your cheaper referral through that way.
Okay.
And that and then we've got and then we'll go Linda, and then we'll go Colin, and then we'll go Mike. Hi, Linda.
Yeah, earlier you said if you're retired, you can't get the mobility car. I mean, I do have the PIP, but I am receiving the state pension. So what route do I go down? You just have to purchase a vehicle independently.
So if you still got the PIP, you should be able to still get the car.
Right.
I can't quite remember the point where it changes over, but once you go from PIP, there's another benefit, and that benefit doesn't come with the PIP.
Tenants allowance.
That'll be the one. That tenants allowance doesn't have of that now. If you get the Motability, once you've got the Motability car, you get it for 3 years.
So simply that I've got the PIP.
Yep.
It's still valid. All of it's valid.
Yep. So go and get, if you're thinking about getting a car, go and get that sorted before it changes over. Because at that point you're no longer valid. If you've got the financial means, really run the costs. PIP isn't always, and Motability isn't always the best way to do it. The adaptions, a left foot accelerator is about £400. You're not looking at a horrible, horrible cost in the great scheme of things. If you're looking at having a car and you want that car for 5 years, on Motability, you'll only get it for 3 years.
Hmm.
And in some ways, it can be a higher cost way of doing it. So you need to really run the numbers and make sure it works. They also have limited vehicles on their scheme. So again, make sure you can get the vehicle that you want, not the vehicle you can have.
Hmm.
And really run the numbers, make sure it works for you. You know, a hand control with a steering ball is about £800. If you're starting to look at the electronic stuff, you're looking at much higher figures. But again, if you've got the financial ability to do it, some of these electronic controls are lovely. You can get a fly-by-wire accelerator handle that attaches to your hand, and it's a trigger. So you can have both hands on the steering wheel. You can drive normally, accelerate just with your fingers, and then you just need a push-away brake. Now, that's a very expensive adaptation. But if I lost both my legs for whatever reason and had the money to do it, that would be the adaptation I would go and get. It's fantastic. It's lovely. It's brilliant. It's very expensive. Motability would not cover it unless there is an absolute medical need for that adaptation. So there's swings and roundabouts on it. Hopefully that helped.
Yeah, one quick question.
Yep.
I haven't informed DVLA. My amputation was 4 years ago, like you say, just last thing to think about. But I've never driven.
Yep.
But there's no penalty, is there? Simply because I haven't informed them.
No, you're absolutely fine. Go and have your assessment.
Yeah.
And inform them.
Yeah,
you know, you're absolutely fine. You know, you're not driven. You've not driven illegally. But the moment that you do drive without them informed, problem.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
The moment you've informed them, you're covered. So they don't have to respond it to you. Make sure you've sent it recorded delivery. Make sure you can prove that you've sent it.
Yeah.
But the moment you've sent it, you're covered.
Right.
They don't need to have responded. The moment you've sent it, you're covered. So Colin had his hand up a moment ago.
Yeah. 2 questions. Do Motability pay for the adaptions if you get high rate PIP?
They will pay for the basic adaptions, mostly, yes. If you decide you want something more, so say you need a steering ball, but you would like to have the ability to do your indicators and all your headlights on a secondary control, they wouldn't cover the cost of the secondary control. You would need to pay for that. It would probably be at a reduced rate, but they wouldn't pay for that if you don't need it.
Okay.
Can I quickly say there that you have to have the adaptions ordered when you order the car?
Yes.
If you ask Motability afterwards, you won't get it. You'll have to pay for it yourself.
Yeah.
In a lot of cases, yes. Again, not every case, but in a lot. So we then had Mike, and then I'll come to Daniel after that.
A couple of quick questions. You said about the assessment. In my case, it's I had the amputation on the left leg.
Yep.
So would I still need to go for an assessment? And would I actually be just okay with just an automatic or an electric?
So, okay. So firstly, you still need to inform the DVLA.
Which I have done.
Yep. Now, have they come back to you already or not?
Well, the trouble is because I also suffer from type 2. So they sent me diabetic forms to fill in.
Yep.
As well as to do an eye test.
Yep.
Which I had done, I think that's about a month ago now. I haven't heard anything from them since then.
So you're relatively simple. Your coding will take you from a open license, which allows you to drive anything, and will restrict you to an automatic vehicle. So you'll only be allowed to drive an automatic. There's no other adaptation, so they probably won't send you for an assessment. They'll probably just code your license to automatic only, which will be code 10 off the top of my head. And that will mean you can't drive a manual vehicle anymore.
Okay.
So you don't need to have an assessment, and they probably won't send you for an assessment. So there's probably not a huge amount of benefit there for you, especially as you're already in the process. And if the DVLA do decide they want you to have an assessment in the way where you're at now, they would then pay for it.
Okay.
So there is an advantage if DVLA send you for the assessment, but it just delays everything and makes it more complicated. So it's always easier if you can do your own assessment and tell DVLA what you're doing, rather than give DVLA Medical the chance to play with you.
Okay.
They're trying to do the right thing. They're understaffed. It takes a lot of time. If you can cut the time out, do it.
Mm-hmm.
I had a young lady, a missing limb from birth, no left leg. Should have been just a case of send in the form, tick the fact that she's got one leg, tick the, she didn't need any adaptions. She just needed to pass in an automatic vehicle. It took them 9 months to send her provisional license.
Yeah.
If she'd had the assessment, they would have just gone, oh, look, this is what we're doing off, and it should have just been sent off. So it's, and that's a simple one. There's nothing complicated there.
No.
But so I think in your case, I would say you're in the process, follow the process, do what they tell you to do when they do it.
Okay.
That would be my advice there. Daniel.
Yeah. I've met you on.
Yeah, I remember we've spoken a couple of times, haven't we?
Yeah, I have got your business card still. Let's get some lessons with you.
Yeah.
I wish we'd have had this talk a long time ago, because up until Celebration Day, I spoke to you, I didn't know half the stuff when we spoke. People need to know, if you are looking toward a mobility car, that you need at least 12 months on your PIP.
Yep.
If you do go to a centre.
Yes, you do.
I'm still waiting for my car. I was told I was getting it in September, but now it's February. So there is a long wait for certain manufacturers.
Again, the advice there would be ask the manufacturer what their wait time is.
Yeah,
and this is, again, if you've got the financial ability to buy, or you've already got a car that you can adapt, and you need to have that financial ability to do it, it's not a bad option at the moment. The wait times and lead times on even quite basic cars at the moment is long. If you're in the electric world, it can be really long. So, if you've got an automatic vehicle, or you've got the ability to buy, this is still going to sound a bbig number, but a £10,000 second-hand car that's going to last you for a couple of years, while you're on the waiting list for your Motability vehicle or whatever, it's a good option at the moment, I'm afraid.
You sound like you're doing well. Can I borrow £10,000 off you, please?
I know that's why I said it's a scary number. But there's no point, especially with the more difficult adaptions or the more expensive adaptions, there's no point putting them on a cheap car that's just going to break down. It needs to be a half decent car, because you're putting another 500 to 2.5 grand in, depending what you're putting on it.
Yeah, that's the things that I did price up getting R1 done, and some of the prices that were coming out were ridiculous. And I was thinking, because then obviously for them to take them hand controls off, once you get rid of that car, they charge you again.
Yep, they do, and yeah, where Motability don't. So
Yeah.
you know, the private angle is: are you going to keep the car for a decent length of time? You know, it's all of that side. There's no, as you'll have all found, when it comes to disability, there's no simple decisions. You've got to weigh
As soon
things
as you
up.
mention disability, it's an extra couple £100 anyway on anything. Hotels, the lot, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, like with my car that I've ordered, sorry to take everyone's time up, they've put into my thing about adaptions, and I don't think he really had a clue what was going on. And he said, "Oh yeah, it's going to be £100 for the adaptions." And I was like, "Right, done." And it's all in paper. So if they try and charge me any extra, I'm going to be like,
they won't, because that's the contract then with Motability.
Yeah. Okay.
So any further questions at the moment? Because I've got a little bit more I could talk to you about choosing cars. So if anyone's got any other questions at this stage. Okay.
I have a
cool.
question.
Oh.
When you say higher rate of PIP,
yep.
is that the same as enhanced rate of PIP?
Yeah, so the enhanced rate on the mobility component, yes. So enhanced or higher rate, there. I think the higher rate bit comes from the words I'm using there comes from the previous available support. Yeah, it's now called enhanced rate. Yes, so it's the top level, the highest rate, the enhanced rate. Is the full PIP. If you're on the, I don't know what they call it, the medium rate, you're not available. You know, Motability vehicles are not applicable, unfortunately. So yeah, a lot of if you've got an arm amputation, because you can walk, you don't get the mobility element. So you don't get any support. But you say you're a left arm amputee, and you're going to need a secondary steering control. That's your most expensive adaptation, and there's no support for you. So there are some charities that do the odd bit of support, but yeah, it's a problem. So other things just to think about when you're choosing your car. So first thing, the seat. On hand controls, you're likely to be sitting a little bit more upright than you naturally would. The steering with most hand controls is put all the way back and up. So you end up sitting a little bit more upright and a little bit closer than you probably would have done on your hand controls. Think about where your feet are going to be sitting. You know, especially if you've got you've got your prosthetics. You don't know where your feet are, so you might feel having a flip-up accelerator pedal, so that especially if you're a taller person, that your feet then can sit either side of the brake pedal, and you don't need to then worry about where your feet are. If you don't wear prosthetics, obviously that's not a concern. But yeah, and again, if you're a right leg amputee, and you don't know where that, and you're using hand controls, and you don't know where that right leg is, again, looking at getting a flip-up accelerator pedal fitted as well is a very, very good thing. If you're a shorter person and don't know where your legs are, a pedal block is quite a good option, and that's a piece of metal that sits between your feet and the pedals themselves. But if you're a taller person, your knees then end up in all sorts of awkward places with a pedal block, potentially. So certainly something to think about. Have a discussion either with your instructor on that one or with the adaptation company. Do not have that conversation with the Motability people at the dealership. They don't know about pedal blocks. They don't know about the downsides of them. They don't know about the upsides of them. Have that discussion about, you know, I'm very tall, I don't know where my feet go, you know, with the actual adaptations company. I really, really, you know, think that's a good thing to do. Think, especially when you've got leg amputations, think about where the amputation is and how the seat is feeling. When you've gone, oh, this is a car I really like, now sit in it for an hour with a book. How close is the edge of the seat to the amputation site? How sensitive are you? If you've got very, very sensitive stumps, having things like a little rib of plastic or the stitching that goes round the front of the seat on especially some of these high-end cars with the leather seats, that little rib or that can sit right on your stump, and it feels fine for 5 minutes, but after an hour it can get really irritated. Make sure that your feet, that your legs are comfortable. Same thing if you're an arm amputee. Where is that arm going to sit? Is there somewhere for you to rest your arm? Does it sit in your lap nicely in this car? Is there an armrest somewhere where your arm sits nicely, or is it just hanging? If it's just hanging, and you know, especially if you're someone who supports the stump a lot, you're going to find that really uncomfortable and start to put quite a lot of pressure on your shoulder. So think about, you know, how you sit in the vehicle and how comfortable that's going to be after a long period of time. Are you someone who's suffering from associated pain with your amputation, especially in your back? You know, with your walking, your back's being put out. Would heated seats be a good option? Does heat help you? I've got back problems. I played sport at a relatively high level. My back is not in a great shape. I put the heated seat on this morning for my first lesson. My back's feeling fine now. Yes, it might cost you a little bit more on the car. It might take a bit more of your pip up, but is that then going to allow you to drive long distances? Something worth thinking about. Cruise control. Cruise control is an amazing thing, especially some of these more modern ones where the cruise control is adaptive and picks up what's happening in front of you. If you're on hand controls, you know, you're going to be driving on a handle that you're pushing forwards and backwards, forwards and backwards, forwards and backwards for quite a long period of time. It can put quite a lot of strain into your shoulder. Now, on longer journeys, if you've got cruise control, click your cruise control on, you can now rest that arm. You can have it by your knee, on your steering wheel, wherever you want it, and then it's all just push away to brake and you're back in control. Fantastic. Cancel the cruise control, you're back in control. Question: can you reach your cruise control on the car you're looking at? The best place to have your cruise control is on your left hand near your steering wheel. Then it's just drop off your steering wheel onto the cruise control, press the button, drive off you go. If it's on your right hand, it can be harder to get across to. It's still possible, but it's harder. You know, can you get to it? I think those are your big things to think about. And again, if you've got cruise control and you've never used cruise control, get your instructor to have a play with it, because it's an absolute game changer for long distance driving. But if you've never used it, it's another scary thing to get overcome. And, you know, an hour on the dual carriageway or motorway being taught how to use it, boom, done. You'll not think about it again. And with the proliferation of sort of 20-mile-an-hour speed limits that we're getting now, if your cruise control works at 20, stick it on at 20, off you go. I now probably use my cruise control more in 20s and 30s than I do on the motorway and dual carriageway. You know, I can't afford to lose my driving license. Stick it on, jobs are good. So, we got any further questions at the moment, or are we all pretty much happy? Yep, go on, Linda.
This might be a red herring, but I'm thinking about insurance. Like if you're purchasing your own vehicle, surely you have to purchase your own insurance, and isn't it very expensive?
So yes, no, maybe. So you will need your own insurance.
Mm.
You need to tell them about the disability, and you need to tell them that you're using adaptions. The reason they might charge you slightly more is to cover the cost of the adaptions. They're not supposed to, notice the word supposed to, charge you any more because you're using adaptions. They're not, Disability Discrimination Act, they're not allowed to charge you more to access the same product. Unless it's a particularly high value adaption where the cost of the adaption significantly increases their liability. There are specialist insurers out there that only work with people with disabilities. So insurance companies like Fish, they're a disability only insurer, and there's various different brokers that will do broking for you. Adrian Flux, and things like that. But in theory, Direct Line, Churchill, all of those people should offer you the same cover that they offer me, in theory. So worth ringing around finding out. Yes, Chris.
Thanks.
Just to say, eventually I bought my own as such, so I didn't go on the mobility scheme. I was going to, but then I weighed up the costs. I don't think I was charged any more insurance-wise at all. And you get your tax, obviously. You don't pay tax, road tax.
Okay.
So when I worked it out, we were okay. I've got the maintenance to pay myself. I just bought a good second-hand, a Ford Tornado actually, so I could get the mobility scooter in. It got 4 seats. It suited us. My husband drives it at the moment, obviously on the right foot because I've got the dual control. But I can then get either my chair or my scooter or whatever into the back. So I think for me it was a good option.
Yeah, I think that what Chris is saying there about the adaptions. Someone non-disabled can drive the cars still. They're designed to still be a normal vehicle. Do not let your partner use your controls, especially a left foot accelerator. If you're using a left foot accelerator, do not let your partner, do not let anyone else use it, because they will do the mother and father of all emergency stops the moment they try and use their left leg on that brake.
Like I did when I first got in.
Yep, I do not use my left foot accelerator on the road. I'm quite happy using all of my other adaptions on the road. I will happily use the left foot accelerator in a nice empty car park. You would not want to be my passenger though, because I will put you through the windscreen. I cannot brake with my left foot.
And that is I think the issue.
Yep.
And we'll learn. It's just so. I know once you've done it, you'll probably say, "Oh, I'm used to it now." But
you've got to get used to it. You've got to get the confidence in it.
Yeah.
Get Vicky to send over my details to you, Chris.
I will.
And we can have a chat, and we can work out what the options are. Now, if you're outside my area, either speak to your assessment centre. They should have someone who can support you. They should know someone, not necessarily local to you, because there are not a huge amount of us out there. There are some areas that have got very, very, very little coverage. Norfolk. Yeah. I'm afraid in East Anglia, it virtually has no one. Milton Keynes, for example, there's no one in Milton Keynes at all. Peterborough, there's a couple of people that sort of come into Peterborough, but there's no one in Peterborough. There are things happening, but it's not going to change quickly. But we are, as an industry, we are looking to change this. But yeah, go to your mobility centre. They can recommend someone, or go on the Disability Driving Instructors website, and there will be people listed there. So I'm listed on there. I know in East Anglia, last time I looked on there, it's like 6 people covering the whole of East Anglia on there. So it's not many. But there's other areas which have got decent coverage. The Midlands is actually quite well covered, for instance.
But my point about the insurance,
Yep.
it wasn't. I mean, I think we looked at fish, didn't we? And that was more expensive.
Fish was outrageous.
Very expensive. So I just went with the.
Well, Direct Line was Lucas we were working.
Yeah, Direct
They
Line.
were expensive.
Yeah.
They turned out to be expensive, about 100 and something odd pounds.
Yeah.
1 year. So I went with LV.
Just look as you
Just
would
look.
normally. I think was what I found.
Yep.
Oh, that's good. Thanks.
So I think the big things: get your assessment done. Let DVLA know as soon as you can. Once you've had your assessment, send the assessment off with any paperwork that you're sending to DVLA Medical. Identify your instructor early and make sure your instructor knows you exist. Whether you're a learner driver, whether you're returning from driving, do not phone us 2 weeks from getting your car. We're not going to be able to help you. You will need to be prepared to travel in some cases, because I'm going to be honest with you, you're going to get much better service from me or whoever you're going to if I know, or the instructor you're working with knows the area they're working in, because we know the nice little nursery route that we can take you around. We know that actually there's a school around the corner here. We don't want to be on this nursery route at 3 o'clock, so we'll go to the other one. We also know there's a nice load of roundabouts here, and with hand controls, roundabouts can be a bit interesting, so we can then string together these roundabouts and then stop you and have a chat. We know which slip road we want to put you on first for going onto the dual carriageway or motorway for the first time. If we're going to your area and that's 30-40 miles out of the area that we know, we're guessing, and then we're suddenly reacting, and that's when you're going to get a bad instruction off us saying, I don't know what's coming next, and that's going to give you a worse experience. So do be prepared to travel, because you will get a better experience. And then don't be afraid to get refreshers. You may have got the idea of the controls, you may have got the car sorted out, but then actually you've not driven on a dual carriageway for a year, 2 years, 3 years. Have another lesson. I quite regularly, if people come back to me 6-12 months later going, really, really confident, not been on a motorway yet. Really, really confident, not driven into the centre of my city yet, and I need to do X, Y, and Z. Great, 2 hours, we'll go, your car, my car, we'll have a play. If your physical condition changes and you're struggling with the adaptions you're using, go and have another assessment. I think the classic would be, you've got diabetes, one leg's sadly had to have an amputation. Now the next leg is beginning to lose feeling. Get the assessment done before anything further happens to that leg, so you can then start to adjust to it. You know what's going to be needed. You might not need your license recoded, so the DVLA might not need to know anything about it other than the fact that, okay, I've had a second amputation, I've had my assessment, here it is. But don't get yourself into a position where, okay, I don't trust this leg anymore, and now I need to change controls again. Try and change controls before it's necessary. And again, a lot of that should hopefully have been picked up in your assessment, and maybe that's been gone into the thought process on your adaptions that you're using. But yeah, and don't let the confidence slip. If you need help, ask for it. It might take us time, but there are people out there who want to help you. And yeah, I think that's, unless anyone else has got questions.
I was just going to say, when you choose your car, remember you'll have that car for 3 years.
Yep.
Make sure you can get your wheelchair in it. And if you need a flat boot rather than one with a lip, you have to lift it over.
Yep.
And put your bum in lots of seats. It's your car. It's for you. It's not for anybody else.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think actually that's a really big thing. It is your car. Your partner may prefer X, the partner may prefer Y. The kids may have slightly more space in a different vehicle. Actually, if you're not comfortable driving that vehicle, and with a disability, you are much, much more positionally sensitive. If you're on hand controls, if you're on that left foot accelerator and you're not comfortable, you're going to get discomfort, you're going to get pain, it's going to be a problem. If you sit in that car for an hour and go, I can sit here reading this book really comfortably for an hour, you should be able to drive it comfortably. But make sure it works for you as a driver, not just for you as a family or your partner, because it's a sporty one and it's all lovely. Think about where you're going. Would a hoist be helpful? If you've got a wheelchair, how are you going to maneuver it? There are lots of options out there. Don't just speak to Motability, speak to the adaptions companies about, this is my situation. How am I going to get my wheelchair into this vehicle? How am I going to get my mobility scooter into this vehicle? You don't want to be in a position where you've got this fantastic vehicle, you can drive it, but my partner's the one who can get the mobility scooter out, I can't. So you're now no more able than you were before. You've got no more independence because you can't get your mobility scooter out. So it means you can't go shopping on your own. You can't go and see your friends without one of them lifting it out the boot. You can't go and do what you want. You're now just as trapped as you were, but now you can drive to the place you're going to be trapped in instead of staying in your home. And that's no way to go forward. So yeah, you might not have the car that you ideally want, but you can get your scooter out of it. You can get your wheelchair out of it. It's all good. Everything's a compromise when it comes to disability, as you guys already know. It's just another compromise somewhere, but if that gives you your independence, I don't think you can put a price on that. I really don't. So yeah, I hope this has been helpful to people.
Thank you so much.
Oh, Andy.
Sorry,
yeah,
Andy.
I've never thought about driving before. I'm a left leg below the knee amputee, and I'm type 2 diabetic.
Yep.
What are the things that I should do now to start get the ball rolling, kind of thing? Because that's my biggest problem is if I don't know, I'll spend ages like.
Yep. No. Okay. So left leg amputee.
Yeah.
So firstly, have you ever done anything with the DVLA? Do the DVLA know?
No.
So you need to apply for a license.
Yeah.
Because you're diabetic, you're going to need to fill in a book of paperwork. And I'm not going to speak for Vicky here, but I'm sure Vicky might be able to help you with that. Or Steel Bones might be able to help with that. It's a book of paperwork, but you need to basically apply for your license, tell them that you're an amputee, tell them that you're diabetic. The diabetes is the bit that's going to make it more complicated. Is your diabetes well under control? Would your doctor say it's well under control?
It is, yeah.
Yeah, so there's no reason why you won't get a license. It will just take time to go through DVLA medical. As a left leg amputee, it's going to be standard controls, automatic. So the reality is you don't need an assessment because they're just going to say automatic. It may well speed up your application if you do have an assessment. My advice: speak to your local assessment centre. So where are you living?
I live in Telford, Shropshire,
so
West Midlands.
So that might be QEF. Go onto their website, go onto the Drive Mobility website, find your local assessment centre, who you would use, have a chat to them, get their advice. You know, what would you suggest? Now, being a left leg amputee, I would advise you to go with a specialist instructor because they're going to know about the disability testing requirements, because the examiners are going to have a book of paperwork to do on you, even though it just says left leg amputee. There's nothing complicated. They've still got a book of paperwork to do. Having a disability instructor would just have more awareness. Saying that, if you can't find a specialist, a standard automatic instructor would be able to help you. They should know about disability testing. In theory, they might well not. Any problems, I'm more than happy to, point that instructor in the right direction on how to do it, to make sure you're getting the right test, the right level of support. In terms of lessons, sadly, you're not 17. It will take longer for you to learn than a 17-year-old. Yeah. So you're going to be looking at 60 to 70 hours worth of tuition. My advice wouldn't be to throw yourself down for a Motability vehicle at this point and try and get free lessons. My advice would be have a few lessons, check it's something that you feel actually it's what you want to do. And then maybe see if Motability is something that you are able to get, because once you've then got that in, you could get the funding potentially. But there is a process there, and that would be the way I would go. But there's nothing clear cut, but hopefully that helps you.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
My pleasure, Andy.
There's a question from Lisa in the question box.
Oh, go for it. I can't see. Where's the question box?
I'll read it out. I can't turn my mic on because the council are working outside. How do we do the driving assessment if we haven't told the DVLA? I have a right leg below the knee and limited mobility in my left foot.
So, the rules that assessment centres follow are different than the public. So they've got all the insurance, they've got all of the, you're going out with an instructor. So the legal bit is you're going out with them to find out what you legally need. So it's a slight backdoor through the legal side. Get yourself referred. So go onto the Drive Mobility website, find your local assessment centre, find out their referral process, get your GP, carer, anyone medically to refer you, and go and get your referral done, and then they will give you all the paperwork that you need to make the DVLA side as simple as it possibly can be. Once DVLA know about it, you're then covered under Section 88. So as long as your doctor says you're fine to drive, no one says you can't do it, you know, you're fine to drive those controls. But yeah, that's how you do it. You know, go and just tell the assessment centre and they can then sort it for you from there. You may still end up with books of paperwork, unfortunately, but if you're telling them, it should, rather than them finding out about it and them asking you a zillion questions, it should be a simpler process.
Lisa's put, thank you.
My pleasure.
And a massive, massive thank you for your time today. It's been so informative, and I know we've all learnt a lot today, and it's quite likely we'll be asking you to come back.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, the next celebration day, I'm hoping to be there, or should be there. So it would be good to see some of you there, and, you know, anyone who needs my contact details, anyone who needs any support, speak to Vicky or Wendy, and they will get my details across to you, and we'll see what we can do.
Brilliant.
Thanks.
And thank you everybody for joining.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
Lovely. Thank you very much.
Take care.
Okay, take care everyone, and
Bye.
thanks again,
Thank
Kieran.
you.